Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Well, good morning. This is Stan in Gainesville, Florida. And today on Light Talk, we have another great interview.
And this is Ellen coming to you from the relaxing, tropical, carefree island of St. Bart's.
And this is David, coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers and Sistah.
David, you must be practicing that vocal work.
I have gotten the vocal down. So welcome everyone to episode 182, and today we welcome back our Lumen sister, Ellen Lampert-Greau. How is it in the Caribbean, Ellen?
Well, it's hot. It's very, very, very hot. But we're lucky so far. No hurricanes, fingers
no
crossed.
Hurricanes.
Thank
That's
God
the key.
for that.
Yeah,
Right,
thank goodness.
right.
Oh, I got bad news for you.
What?
I was looking at the weather service today, and they are predicting that we are going to run out of letters in the alphabet, and we are going to go to the Greek alphabet naming hurricanes as we move into October.
That's exactly right, because we're already up to Paulette, which was just named. And after that, they go to Alpha, Delta, Tango, November.
Okay, we already know that we're having a hell of a lot more hurricanes because what was it, about 30 years ago, they decided to go to male names because they're running out of female names, right? They have to have equal opportunity hurricanes. Now we're running out of male and female names.
Come on, we have a guest waiting.
Oh, right. Okay. So
Jeez.
today our guest, we have a great show with our guest lighting designer, Adam Honore. Adam, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Where are you right now? Where in the world are you?
I am in Harlem, Manhattan, New York City.
What street?
144.
I know where that is. And what avenue?
I sit right between Adam Clayton Powell and Frederick Douglass.
Oh, is that so? That's the east side or west side?
Well, it's technically central Harlem because I know the East Harlem River does a little like jet in right around this part of town. So we're central.
Well, anyway, we'll get to all that after our bio. And speaking of bio, Stan is going to tell us a little bit about Adam's life and career.
Well, here we go, folks, and take a close listen because this is Adam Honore. He's a Harlem-based lighting designer for plays, musicals, and live events. His resume includes off-Broadway productions, regional shows, national tours, and international premieres. Internationally, Adam's work has been seen in Austria, Canada, and the Philippines, where he designed the international premiere of Fun Home, which was directed by Barbie Garcia and featured Tony Award winner Lea Salonga. Select off-Broadway, Ain't No Mo, The Public, Carmen Jones, Classic Stage, Behind the Sheet, Ensemble Studio Theater, and Phobia, Carnegie Hall. Select regional includes the Arena Stage, the Capitol Repertory Theater, the Dallas Theater Center, the Huntington Theater Company, Shakespeare Theater Company, and the Signature Theater. International, Haydn's The Seasons in Austria, Kinky Boots in Manila. Fun Home, international premiere with Leah again, Drama Desk nominee, Adelco Award recipient, and so on. And just a few of his recent awards: the Adelco Award recipient for Carmen Jones, the Adelco Award nomination for Ain't No Mo, the Drama Desk Award nomination for Carmen Jones, the Henry Hughes Award nomination for Carmen Jones, the Henry Hughes Award nomination for Ain't No Mo, Helen Hayes Award current nominee in September 2020 for A Chorus Line, and was selected as Industry 30 Under 30 by Live Design Magazine. So that's quite a thing going on for a guy who's only 40 or 50. No, just kidding.
Like 26, right? He's like 26.
He's 26.
26, that's right. Quite the achiever. So Adam, welcome to the Lumen family.
Thank you. It's crazy because it's wild to have someone read your bio and a little bit of your life to you, and it doesn't happen very often. And I'm sitting here thinking, who did that? Who lit all these shows?
That's you, man.
Wow.
We can have David make a cut of that, and that can be the answer on your answering machine.
Or you could put that, make that your ringtone.
Wow.
I love that.
Well, listen, Adam, it's great to have you here. Let's get started. Stan has our first question.
Well, let's just start with something kind of basic for you, Adam. Tell us a bit about your background and how you got started becoming a lighting designer.
Absolutely. Well, I hail from arguably the most colorful city in the United States of America, and that's New Orleans, Louisiana.
Yeah, ain't
Absolutely.
that
And
the
I
truth?
often love to say that New Orleans is like the farthest, most north Caribbean city in the Caribbean, because it really is closer to a Caribbean tropical island than it is like anything else in this country. And you know, it just so happened that right before Hurricane Katrina, my parents moved to Dallas because of job opportunities. So it was literally like the summer before Katrina, we picked everything up and moved to Dallas. And that September, one of the most destructive hurricanes rolled through New Orleans. So we had this brand new little 4-bedroom home in North Dallas, and we ended up having 17 people staying with us because they had nowhere to go after the storm, and we were the closest relative to New Orleans. So that was a wild time. But Texas is wonderful, and they have a great kind of art scene and a history of creating arts, especially in Dallas. And when I moved to Dallas, I kind of was introduced to this kind of performing arts industry that I didn't even know existed before, everything from opera to ballet to musical theater. And it just so happened that my brother was going to see the musical at the local high school, and he was going on a date, and he was running out the door, and he's like, I'm going to be late. I got to go pick up my date. And my mother was like, take your brother with you. And my brother, was
busted.
so upset. But I loved just going with him. He
Sure.
would take me to the movies on a date, and he'd be like, sit back there and don't talk. So
Get lost.
we get to the high school. I had no idea what I was going to see. I just knew we were going somewhere. It was going to be in a theater. It was going to be a musical. So the show was Little Shop of Horrors. And, it's arguably one of the best musicals ever written. Just the format of it, the music, the layout, the ensemble. And I didn't know this at the time, but Little Shop just so happens to be written by Alan Menken, who also wrote all of the songs for the Disney Renaissance, which I had grown up on, Hercules and a whole slew of other shows. And it just so happened that the film of Little Shop was directed by Frank Oz, who voiced, my childhood idol, Miss Piggy. And there was something about a culmination of growing up on the Muppets and all these Disney films that when I came together to see Little Shop, which honestly, I saw photos of that production recently. It is not nearly as marvelous as I thought it was back then. But it felt like was meant to be. And it was, the curtain went up and they have this beautiful snare drum roll at the beginning. And you could see, the conductor peeking out of the pit. And there were people singing and acting like in this box on stage that, when you grow up on television, you had no idea what that is. And you could feel this energy over the production, right? Because when you grow up on things like Tom and Jerry, there's a director, there's actors, and there's like a stage crew, the lights, camera, action feeling. But what I didn't realize is that there's this kind of celestial feeling, which I later come to realize is the design team, right? It's the choreographer, it's the lighting designer, it's the book writer that create this kind of godly feeling of making a show happen. And when I was little, I didn't understand that really jazzed me. I was just like, oh my gosh, footlights and gel and gobos. Not that I knew what any of that was, but I wanted to be a part of it. I was like, how do I start, working on theater? So when I got to middle school, we were in a cafetorium, which is a cafeteria auditorium with 4 little par cans. Half of them were busted. So we had 2 of them and one of them pointed halfway up the wall. So I was like, this is useless. So I went to Guitar Center and I asked them, what is this light fixture? And they're like, oh, that's a par can. I was like, can I get a replacement? And I actually, with my own money, bought 3 replacement pars and fixed up the little lighting rig. And that's how we kind of started the technical department at my middle school. That kind of led me into this, then joining high school and doing the tech department there. And what blows my mind when I reflect on it is that I was doing technical theater. I was a part of student council. I was running cross country. I was the captain of the cross country team.
Wow.
And I still had homework every day. So I don't know how I fit this into 24 hours every day. And we were doing, I think my senior year, we did 2 all school musicals and then 4 other plays in the theater department. So it was just kind of this wild world of, I didn't have time to stop and think about it too hard, or else I probably would have thrown up or something.
You're one of those damn overachievers. We hated those people at school, remember? Why is that person? They get all their homework done. They would like go swimming in the morning. They'd be in rock bands at night. They'd get all the girls, right? You know, really. Anyway.
Adam, you've got to give a tip of the hat to your theater teacher who obviously inspired you. Who was that?
Okay, so there's two of them. In middle school, that was Rayanne Cox, and she still teaches at that middle
Beautiful.
school to this day. I think she just celebrated her 20th anniversary at that middle school. And we all called her up because she has a number of students who are now casting directors and performers on Broadway. And we said, Miss Cox, have you ever been to New York City and seen any of our shows? Not once in her 30 years of teaching has she been to New York and seen a Broadway show. So we flew her out here, and she stepped off the plane. We all met her in Times Square, and she just started crying because she never knew that this little middle school teacher in North Texas could inspire so much out of so many people. And that was such a big moment for us. And my second teacher, I have to absolutely thank, because he pushed me towards a career in design and told me, you know, when Don Holder graduated from school, you know, he went and studied lighting design. He went and got an MFA in design because that's what he wanted to do. And these people have a career in design. And he was the first person to show me that Julie Taymor coffee book with all the designs for The Lion King. And he really opened my eyes, and that was Dusty Thompson. He was one of the original ensemble members in Hairspray on Broadway, which I thought at the time was the coolest thing, that my teacher was an original, you know, ensemble member in Hairspray. So that was really awesome.
Let's talk about this career a little bit. So you're 26 years old, and that suggests to me that you have honored the past and gone directly into Broadway and not bothered with graduate school. Do you have an MFA, or did you go right to work before that?
You know, I do not have an MFA, and it's something that it was only brought to my attention earlier this year that many people who have these careers doing design and all of these nominations and all of these theater companies on their resume, especially coming up, being a child of the 90s and early 2000s, almost everyone I know and a lot of my colleagues do the path of going to undergrad, going to grad school, and then graduating, and then starting their journey. And I don't know, something about that didn't necessarily suit me as an artist or an individual. I looked at what everyone else was doing, and I felt like I stopped for a second. I was like, wait, why is everyone doing this? Why can't you do this, that, or the other? You know, because I feel like up until you get to undergrad, you're really doing what the teacher says to do or what people in the industry, you know, suggest to do. And honestly, it is a really great idea to take the avenue of an MFA or go to Yale or NYU or SMU or any of the amazing grad programs. But I really just wanted to go to New York and do it. And I blame Little Shop a little bit because they put this idea in my head that what New York was. And I had always known, and you know, Little Shop is based on like the 1950s through the 1970s version of New York, where it's seedy and gross. And that actually really jazzed me. You know, that really jazzed me.
You know, I just want to, I mean, someone can jump in here and correct me, but I think Ken Billington went right from high school.
That's right.
I think he went to New York and started knocking on doors right out of high school. But you think about all the really great, I'm not suggesting Ken's an old school person, but if you think about a lot of our heritage designers, they didn't go to grad school.
I think the reality is that you don't need grad school. Grad school is just there to keep the three of us employed, basically.
Yeah, that's it. you know, if I can jump in. So Ken actually told us, when you were telling your story, Adam, about your beginning, it was reminding me of Ken and the circuit breakers in middle school that he told on the interview. But he grew up in Harrison, New York, just up the river, and he just wanted to do it, just like you did. And he just came down. Same with me. I did it for 12 years before I went back to grad school because I decided I wanted to teach. So you don't necessarily, I don't know if it's changed. You could debate whether it's a necessary thing now or not, but I think more power to you that you just jumped in the pool and did it.
So Adam, let's get back to this being a non-traditional approach into design. When did you start? When did you decide you were a designer? You know, did you Just one day you
when
went, I'm
did I
going to make the move
decide?
and I'm going to knock on
You know,
doors?
If you asked my mother, she would say when I was about 8 or 9. She honestly might even say when I was 6, right? Because when I was 6 years old for Christmas, all I wanted was one of those cheap little plastic disco balls with all the multicolors on it. And I told my mother point blank that Christmas morning, I said, I'm going to own a nightclub. And she said, what? I was like, I want to open a nightclub. I want to, and I wanted to open something that probably, honestly, looks like Studio 54, that had all of this big lighting, big production, big divas. And something about the show business always really excited me and the flash of the industry. And I remember when I was a little kid, my grandmother would have like a pack of bottled water, and I'd take it down the block and say she spent $12 on that pack of bottled water. I'd sell each bottle for $2, and I'd try to get her $24 for it. And then I'd say, well, you can keep 30%. I'll keep the other, 70%, and we'll make a deal. So I've been making these deals since I was a little kid.
You're entrepreneurial as well in spirit.
I think so.
What was your first big show? Or what you considered your first big show or your big break?
My big break or my first big show. It's funny because that keeps changing as my career progresses. If you're looking at a retrospect of my industry now, I'd say Carmen Jones was probably my first big break. It also happened to be my first major off-Broadway piece that garnered a Drama Desk nomination. I still don't understand how that happened, but here we are. And it was the first piece that, when you meet with directors and producers, they go, oh, invite me to your show sometime. I'd love to see your work. Now, when I meet with producers and directors, they go, oh, I saw these 5 shows on your resume, and we've been trying to contact you, but your agent's been out of office. So, it really has, and I mean that in the most humble way possible.
Wait. Your really agent's out of the office? Fire that agent. What the hell?
That's actually, I can say this now because they no longer exist, but
Good.
I used to be with the Ralph Company, and they went under due to COVID-19, so they no longer exist. And so I've moved on to a new agent. So I'm very happy with them, and everything's okay. So.
But you have a press agent too, though, right?
That's correct.
Oh, I've got one last thing. I know I'm hogging the conversation a little bit, but a lot of our listeners are kind of your age group. Mm-hmm. Can you tell them in a few words, how do you get an agent?
Oh my gosh. So I don't know why I got serious all of a sudden, but
Because it's business.
it first starts with meeting them, because I think really quick you're going to separate the people who really want to be your agent and be your true friends. And an agent is kind of like a sibling relationship. Right? So they can call you sometimes and you can be slightly annoyed with, oh, they couldn't get this deal, or maybe they couldn't get you the price you want, but you still love them and you want to hear from them and you can, have these conversations. So they need to be someone that's like family to you. Whereas it's very apparent when you're meeting with agents who's the used car salesman and who's actually going to get you the jobs. So I think, it's funny you say that in a couple of words. I'm a rambler, but I think that's what it's about. It's meeting them. It's like dating. You really have to sit down, have coffee with them. Is this a person you can have a drink with at 1 a.m.? That kind of energy in that relationship is what you're looking for.
You are young, and you've obviously come to age as a designer in the LED revolution era. Did you ever work with a rig that was all conventional since that original park hands in your middle school? And how do you deal with LEDs and color mixing, which seems to be a big topic these days?
Oh, huge topic. I did. Actually, when I was in college, my first 3 out of the 4 productions I designed in college were all conventional rigs. And I will say that LEDs didn't really catch on industry-wide until, honestly, very recently, because in the early 2000s, you would have an LED fixture that had red, green, blue, and the colors were really off, and the boards weren't nearly as good as, color matching or making them kind of mimic the idea of a incandescent. So I did start with incandescents, and quite honestly, and this is nothing about anyone on this podcast, but the people who were teaching me all about your age had grown up in the incandescent movement. So that's what we were learning in school. So
What'd you say there, Sonny?
Not my program, whippersnapper.
So, we were learning about things that Theron Mussard would give to the industry. And so that, I think, honestly, that gave me a really great foundation that kind of landed on an aesthetic that I have today in all my shows. But when I graduated school and moved to New York, everyone was using LEDs. I think ETC had really perfected their line of LEDs, and they came out with a less expensive color source, which gave people all over the world in the industry, these high schools and these regional theaters, an opportunity to get LEDs in their doors, which has been wonderful. And when LEDs first came out, the way they were being sold was, why hang 4 lights with 4 different gel when you can hang 1 light that does the job of that entire, multi-system, which honestly is a big use for them. You can hang, instead of having to hang 500 lights, you can now hang 250 lights and still have a really clean looking production. It's made, it's given Broadway shows a makeover as far as the box boom position is concerned. So now you can enjoy the architecture of the theater and not see, hundreds of instruments flanking the stage. And for my own aesthetic, I like to do relatively light plots, light plots. There's usually not many instruments. And so I like to have really clean electrics, even if they're not seen. And what's really nice is that now that we're getting into things like the Aura or the BI or all these washing moving head instruments, is that you can then use 1 light to do the job of 27 different instruments. And what's happening now is the programmers are getting so good at kind of mimicking the idea of an incandescent, right? Like the color fading is all clean. How you use these 2 instruments, how they come on. It feels much more, I would honestly say we're about to enter a moment in time where the lighting rigs and the lighting packages are going to start feeling more like the 90s than they ever did before. Because I think the 90s was such an interesting time and that color scrollers were so big and you had all these IQs and things. And so you're going to find that we're going to start having that similar aesthetic happening with these LED fixtures, only they're going to not be incandescent anymore.
Yeah, it's funny too, because gel colors, some people are like, oh, well, that looks more like an R80, and people are like, a what? So I don't know.
The
That's
whole
a
language
reference.
is destroyed.
Exactly.
Well, it's funny because I'm a part of a mentorship program with Roundabout Theater Company, and we have mentees that are high school age in the city. And so many of the students come to me and they don't know gel colors. Like, I still know the gel colors and I still memorize. I'm sure you guys have done this as well, but the gel strings, like I have a whole gel string memorized just because that was the gel string I used in every show. And so those now have turned into color palettes that are in my template and of a show file that I use in every show. And all the programmers I work with, they know the same, 15 colors I love to use. So I feel like in that regard, I still think like some of the older generations of designers, I will be so curious to see how, Generation Z, I think they're called, the generation right below me, will look at gels and look at these instruments and what they're going to create.
They'll look at it like a saltwater dimmer.
No, they'll look at it like a bunch of wine and scotches and, different colors of rum. I mean, I want a Bacardi's 90 on that one, and what else, right? How else are you going to do it?
Time marches on.
Oh my gosh. Quite honestly, I look at some Altman fixtures and I think, why would I ever use this? But a different time and place.
Oh, please, don't get us started.
Hey, those were state of the art when I was coming up.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, I learned a valuable lesson when I was a little Steve from Jennifer Tipton.
Little Steve.
And she didn't care what she used as long as they all matched. So she could do a hell of a job with 60 Altman 360 cues, or she could do it with Colortran, or she could do it with Strand or ETC. But her only rule was all the equipment has to match, because then she knew what it was capable of doing. And I thought, man, what an eye opener.
Well, also that there were even fields, unless there were dark spots in the same spots.
Right.
Light.
Yeah, I think the Source 4 really came through and flattened out the light to a way. I will say that was a big difference between my mentors and I, is that they were talking about these Altmans with these hot spots, and I just could not fake the hot spot in a way that looked good, Because in a Source 4, you run the barrel out and you get a hot spot, it makes a little flower on stage. And then you've got
Oh, the flowers
a whole
are nice
other
too.
thing.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got a serious question for you here, and I'm sure it's impacting you. The pandemic and all the things that are shut down. How, if you look in your magic kind of crystal there, how do you see the future of our industry? What's happening post-pandemic?
Oh, and my crystal ball, the whisperings. What do I see? I imagine the industry, especially at first. One, it'll be a cautious industry, not only for our health, but I think there'll be way more of a holistic view of the different cultures and the races that work in our industry. And I think there will be a lot of thought going into the programming of what we're seeing on stage. And I think at first, we're going to be tapping on the brakes saying, are we doing this right? I think there's going to be a lot of producers and production managers doing a huge push at first, honestly, to see if we can diversify the field a little bit and if we can kind of create a safer environment for our health and our mental health. I think what's going to happen is the gates are going to open up this spring and it's going to be a mad dash to get all these shows going again. And I think we're honestly going to forget ourselves just a little bit. And I think what's going to happen is after we get this first season out of the way, we're going to have a lot of pushback of what could we have done better and what are we not doing better that we said before. It's kind of like the pandemic right now where we all took a breath and now the counts are rising in New York City again, right, where you get comfortable and relaxed. And so I think there will be, a couple of producers are not canceling their shows for the upcoming season that are a little more on the inappropriate side. They might have been appropriate in the pre-coronavirus time, but and then there's other producers who are canceling everything they were going to produce and starting from scratch. And it's going to take time, but I think a lot of people are going to be anxious to start making money again. So I think that's really going to tell us how the industry is going to move forward. So hopefully, my big push right now is for abolishing 10 out of 12s, because I think that's you could take a chunk of time off of each of the days and add a whole extra day of tech, and I think you'd be okay. But we'll see how that goes from there.
How is the shutdown hitting you? I'm sure you've lost shows. When do you see your own career getting back on the track you want it to be on?
Absolutely. I'm calling this time a quarter life retirement because I'm not sure if I'll ever retire. So this has been my time to just kind of take a break and enjoy spending time with my cat who's joined me over here in the chair. But, I was actually doing pretty well for myself when the pandemic happened. And at that time, I had so many productions that were going into first design meetings. So I had all these contracts signed that they then had owed me a third of my fee. So that honestly has kind of floated me through all of this. And there's a lot of producers who are eager to start producing again. So I'm already getting, pings for doing shows in the spring or workshops, or even if it's something small that might be televised. We're working on a lot of that right now. So hopefully it'll come back. I haven't been too terribly affected by this, and I've been super thankful because I actually don't have like a teaching job or a job at a company that can float me. So it's all kind of based on myself as a self-employed person, floating itself. So the ship is still going. We're still flying the flags. And overall, it has not been terrible to be home for the last 8 months.
So talking about the pandemic year, one of the big buzzwords of this year is BIPOC. So can you tell us what that is and what challenges you've had to overcome as a BIPOC designer?
Yeah. So the Black Indigenous people of color are what BIPOC stands for, which I think it's so interesting that they put Black and Indigenous in front of people of color because it feels a little redundant to me. I have similar feelings about when they changed the pride flag to have like black and brown and blue, and I'm like, guys, the colors and it had all of them. So I don't know. People get excited, and I can't get mad at them for being excited. But anyhow, so BIPOC designers and there's a few of us in this industry. We show up to things and we're around, but there aren't many of us. And quite honestly, the even bigger thing for me is the stage crew, because oftentimes we talk about doing shows like Ain't Too Proud, The Life of the Temptations, right? Which is an entirely, well, for the most part, African-American cast. But what a lot of people don't realize when they go to see the show is that most of the crew is not of BIPOC or African-American descent, right? So it's still all, you walk into Focus and it's an entirely white crew. And honestly, most of the men are between the ages of like 35 and 55. So it kind of is interesting because within the last, I would say 5 years, it seems like Broadway and off-Broadway was doing so well with diversity, especially with the number of shows they were doing. But you then look further, you realize that, well, they still had an all-white, design team, or they had an all-male design team, which I think we had our first all-female design team on Broadway with the lifespan of a fact at Studio 54, which opened in like 2017, which is kind of hard to believe. It's crazy to wrap your brain around that sometimes. And so the next question is, how do you get the BIPOC designers to show up to these things? Or how do you get their resume on a production manager's desk? And even if the resume is on a production manager's desk, how do they land that job? Because I've been meeting with a lot of production managers and producers recently, and I asked them, when you read a resume, do you know the ethnicity of the person, who's on the page? And of course, they'll all say no. And I'll say, okay, when you start looking at things like spelling errors or theater companies they've worked at, or let's be honest, you're looking at a singular name, right? Because everyone talks about if you name a baby, make sure it's a name that they can get hired with. And I actually don't know. Do you all have that conversation? I have that conversation all the time. And I don't know if that's just me or if other people have that baby naming conversation.
I don't name babies. I stay away from baby and children. But that's Good. Interesting you said that. I never thought about that, really. A name that you could get hired with.
That's interesting.
A name that you can get hired with. That's something my mother's always talking about. Not that my brother or I are having children anytime soon. But I then ask them those questions. They go, well, actually, yes. And that then brings us to the next point of, are you going to give them the opportunity? And I think opportunity is a big word right now, right? Are you going to give that designer opportunity? Because my first big show, Carmen Jones, I was the associate lighting designer on one of Terrence McNally's last projects called Fire and Air off Broadway at Classic Stage Company. And Jane Cox, who's extremely brilliant and one of the greatest mentors I could have ever asked for. I didn't even ask for her. It just happened naturally. We were working on that show together, and she just so happened had to run back to Princeton and teach a couple of classes that week. So I had about 3 days of just being in preview rehearsals with John Doyle, and he just liked my energy, and he said I had a magnetic personality, which is interesting because I don't. When you talk yourself, you don't necessarily see it, but I guess he saw something. And 3 months later, he called me on the phone, which was weird. It felt like I was in the 1980s because no one calls you on the phone anymore. But he called me on the phone and he was like, Adam, how would you like to design Carmen Jones? I was like, absolutely. But I couldn't say absolutely in the moment because I didn't want to sound way too eager. And I didn't want him to know I was 24 at the time. So I had to act like I, had been in the industry for a minute and working with Jane for like 10 years, even though it was like my second show with her. And so I wrote him back in an email and I was like, I would be completely honored and this would be a great, opportunity. And it wasn't until they released the press release that Friday. I didn't realize I was the last one to get hired on the project, but they released the press release. Did I realize I'd be working with Scott Pask, Ann Hield Ward, Dan Moses-Scheer, all Tony Award winners, all had been working long before my birth. And I was thinking, how did I get here? And what it really was an opportunity that John Doyle saw. We could give this young guy that I enjoyed working with in the room an opportunity to work on this show. I showed up, I did the job, and all of a sudden, I'm on Light Talk.
Oh! It only goes down from here.
It's pretty good when you slip that in there. That was good.
Send him a coffee mug now.
Another career destroyed due to Light Talk.
That was very smooth. Very smooth.
That's funny. But speaking of names you can get hired with, Honore is sort of French. Do people think that? Or do you identify as Creole or Cajun, or what's the deal?
I identify as Creole. A lot of my relatives, if they don't say Creole, they'll say African American or Black, because we do have a Black descendancy. But I do, in the year 2020, I feel like it's only appropriate to give my heritage, some love. Because the Creole people, we are our own ethnicity and we are our own race. And we make up, it's a pretty good population of Louisiana. And I think a lot of people don't see us as an individual body of people. So I'm just trying to be out there as little and as much as I can at the same time.
Pretty damn good food and pretty damn good music. That's all I have to say.
And those funerals are really something.
Gorgeous. It's funny. It's a weird thing to say the funerals are gorgeous, but the weddings are equally as beautiful. Because
I've not been to a Creole wedding, but I've certainly seen that.
They also have a second line similar to the funerals. I was actually in one right before the pandemic happened, and my cousin got married in a loft right in the attic of the St. Louis Cathedral, which is on famous Jackson Square. The photo, I think it was George W. Bush gave a speech there for Hurricane Katrina, and it was all beautifully lit up. But we walked downstairs and we had a cocktail hour. We were like, what are we waiting for? They're like, we're waiting for the horse to show up. I said, what horse? And they're like, for the second line. That was honestly the first time I had been in a wedding that had a second line, because it was the first time a wedding had happened in my family in ages. So she was the first of this kind of millennial generation to get married, and it was a lot of fun.
Now, some of our listeners may not know the difference between a first line and a second line. You have to explain that now.
Absolutely. I've actually never had to explain this. This is really exciting. So a first line would technically be the parade. So it would be like, for Mardi Gras, it would be, like I can't think of a single famous parade name, but it would be the big parade you've seen with the floats and the lights and the throwing out the beads and the mask. And it's just, I say Mardi Gras, and it's like sensory overload because there's so much happening. And that's when you have the boobies on the floats and all of that stuff,
you got
right?
The people vomiting in the street. Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
I have smelled that, but the beads are great.
The second line would be the line that then follows afterwards, which is generally made up of the people of the city or just the people of the parade. Usually locals, sometimes the tourist. I say that because all of us in New Orleans just love the tourist. And we get together with we have our parasols. Well, not me, but the women traditionally. If I wanted one, I could have one. No judgment. And we get together. A lot of people wear their like Sunday best, or we'll have people get an indigenous garb come out. And it's just the locals with instruments and trumpets and tubas and drums, just carrying on the beat of the city, if you will. It's quite literally the heartbeat of the city behind the parade. A second line can go on anywhere from 30 minutes to hours. So it's just a celebration of the love and the continued, investment in Mardi Gras. And quite often it's because we've all been drinking daiquiris since 5 a.m. So the spirit is moving us.
So did the horse show up?
The horse showed up and we did it, and it was amazing, and the photos were amazing, and I guess I'm going to have to get married in New Orleans now to, have a big second line.
Do you play a musical instrument? Because we're always looking for another band member.
It's funny. I play the trumpet. I did pick it back up during the pandemic just because I felt like I needed to do something with my hands and body and wanted to engage in something artistic during this downtime. I started with the tuba. I can play anything from like a tuba, a trombone, a euphonium, or a trumpet, the kind of low brass energy. So if you're looking for kind of a bluegrass, thing, I could probably play into that.
Do you know a New Orleans musician called John Ellis?
I do.
Yeah. Cool, huh?
Yes, absolutely. Which is funny. A lot of people ask me about New Orleans musicians. You should see my phone. It's nothing but, New Orleans music, because it's, I think, some of the best music in this country. So.
Absolutely.
So, Adam, how can you or do you inspire the next generation of stage designers in an industry that is still, unfortunately, struggling with equality?
I think so much of this industry and how to inspire the next group of people. It's funny, I just repeated the question in my statement. I feel like a politician.
That's good.
I would say representation. When I was growing up, the only designer who would make it onto my television or into my textbooks was Alan Lee Hughes, who's been around forever. And he really is a pioneer for the Black designers in this industry. And it wasn't until, the late 90s that, you have designers like Rui Rito showing up to really kind of change the mentorship. Because I know Rui started the Williamstown Theater Festival mentorship and internship, which gave a lot of people opportunities to go up to Williamstown and work on Broadway caliber shows, which I actually was a intern at Williamstown, and I went through that summer, and it was a really eye-opening experience, and it honestly gave me all the tools I needed to move to New York City. And but going back to Alan Lee Hughes, I would look at all his work, which was beautiful, but I felt like Alan had the same problem that I have, to this day. Paul Tazwell actually said this beautifully on a Zoom get-together we had the other week. It's funny that I say I was casually on a Zoom get-together with Paul Tazwell. But he was talking about how even at this late stage in his career, and he's designed some of the biggest hits on Broadway, he still feels like he's pigeonholed into only working on shows of color, right? So he had In the Heights and Hamilton, but he never felt like he had the chance to design something like Beetlejuice or one of these big, roaring Broadway shows like everyone else. And that's how I felt about Alan Lee Hughes' work when I was growing up. I was like, why doesn't Alan get to design The Lion King? Why doesn't Alan get to design these other shows? And I feel like, I try my best. And this year doesn't really count because 2020 has been a wash. But in the last couple of years, I've really been stretching to design other shows like A Chorus Line or Grand Hotel that go beyond what the expected African American is to design. And hopefully, in doing things like speaking on this podcast or being a mentor on the Roundabout Theater Company's mentorship program, those young designers will feel inspired, like they too can do this job. So I find that having them, see you helps, because I think in a lot of low income areas, they think they can grow up to be a handful of marginalized jobs, and they don't think that they can go do these big jobs, these big artistic jobs on Broadway. So I think really it's revamping the mentorship programs and giving more designers of color the opportunity to design.
Can I just amplify what you said about the Roundabout program? Because I bumped into that. I'm a Brooklyn College kid, and there's a lot of people in that borough who are incredibly talented but don't get the opportunity to take the word you're emphasizing. I was sitting at USITT in Kentucky 2 years ago by myself, and these two guys sit down, both BIPOC young men, and they get in my face and they start talking to me like, who are you and why are you here? And at first I was a little startled, and we just got into this conversation, and the two of them were in that Roundabout program who got sent to USITT, and we started talking about how they could, what they were doing and how they can be, to kind of lift them up and show them what's possible. And I started giving them my card and how can I help you? And we stayed in touch for a while. And I think that those kinds of things that you're pointing out are really proactive and very, very powerful. And more of that. What Roundabout is doing is a great, great program.
Absolutely. And, Roundabout has been doing this 5 years now. And the number of students they have produced that are now, second assistants on Broadway shows or assisting off Broadway. It's kind of a staggering number because it's like out of the 8 people in each class, there'll be 6 of them. So it really is a great opportunity to raise them up and have them be seen and give them opportunities.
And if I might, it's not just designers, right? It's also technologists and programmers, right?
Absolutely. It's everything from front of house all the way through backstage.
Oh,
great.
Right. It's the whole
That's
thing.
An amazing program. Well, listen, Adam, we kind of ran out of time, but the Lumen Brothers and Sistah would love to thank you for being with us today. And we're going to be following your career. It's really cool when you have someone in their mid-20s really breaking out. And it couldn't happen to a nicer person.
Oh, thank you so much.
And had you had an agent who really knew what they were doing, they would have said, stay away from light talk, because we have destroyed so many careers. But something, thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's been a joy.
Absolutely.
Thank you very
And
much.
keep in touch, buddy. We'd like to talk to you in another 5 years.
Yeah, I've got your email now, so I don't have to go. I don't have to. Do I have to go through your agent, Adam, to get to you? Or can I just call you up?
Don't even get me started with the agents. Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids, soon to be joined by New Orleans jazz tuba player Adam Honore, tells us that once again, you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, YouTube, Live Design Online, and just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
If you decide to litigate us, agent or not, the law firm of Fleck, Flock, Flare, and Glare and their paralegal snoot will defend us until our retirement funds are completely depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers and Sistah, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, deep in the heart of Texas, New York City, from the Caribbean islands. I mean,
Oh my
it's
God,
everywhere.
everywhere.
We are everywhere,
New
every
Orleans.
corner of the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Thank you so much again, Adam. And bye-bye from Light Talk.
Bravo, Adam. Thanks, Adam.